Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Some local hospitals are facing an uncertain future with planned cuts to Medicaid. Local officials say federal immigration agents are targeting the Puerto Rican Museum, but Homeland Security is pushing back. And a much anticipated house music festival returns to Jackson Park. First off tonight, Medicaid cuts in the massive new federal spending bill are leaving some local safety net hospitals in limbo. These facilities serve mostly Medicaid recipients and uninsured patients and rely heavily on government reimbursements. With funding at risk, hospitals are warning they may have to close and leave communities without badly needed access to care. Joining us to discuss the local impact are Teza Anyuwishki, CEO of Loretto Hospital, Ann Igo, a vice president at SEIU Healthcare Illinois, a healthcare union, and Dan Regan, vice president for communications at Mount Sinai Hospital. Thanks to all three of you for joining us. Teza and Dan, I want to start with you first. This bill just passed, so there's a lot we still don't know yet about how it'll play out, but what are the options that your hospitals might consider to adapt to a potential loss in federal funds? Teza, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think the long and short is that we'll have to shutter some services. We're not hoping we are not looking at closure, but that could potentially be a case. We currently serve 83% Medicaid population, and so that will represent about 25% reduction for us, which means our uncompensated care goes up, our expenses rise, but our revenue decreases. And so in order to fill in that gap, we'll have to make some tough decisions, and that may very well mean shuttering some services. And, you know, the ultimate, the end to that would be more healthcare disparities in the community. The routine individuals won't have access to routine medical care.
Dan, same question.
We're facing a lot of the same things. I mean, we're a Medicaid population that's about 70%. And we're looking at the bill. You're trying to evaluate it right now since it just got passed and figure out what all the impacts are going to be. Some are going to happen right away. Some won't happen for a while. So we're trying to figure out what the timing of all that's going to be. But we're looking at the same kinds of things. What are the critical services that our community needs? And what are the changes that we'll need to make? Because there's no doubt that it's going to impact us extremely. So we've got to look at what's the right service mix, and how do we combat, how do we put that forward into the community and give our community members what they need when they need it, while still maintaining our ability to fulfill our mission for the long term.
And Igo, what does some of this mean for the people who work at these hospitals and safety net hospitals, facilities like them?
I mean, this bill and the cuts and the specific cuts to the provider assessment tax is cruel and unnecessary. So that our communities are still going to be there. Our communities are still going to need care, and what we're going to see is folks who are living with chronic conditions are no longer going to be able to receive that preventative care. We are going to see thousands and thousands of preventable deaths. We're going to see the life expectancy in the south and west side of Chicago expand even more. Right now it's at 30 years. And so this is a concern for our members. Our members work at these safety net hospitals across the city and across the state. They do this because it's necessary work to be done. And these are also the communities that they live in. So they themselves are going to, have to go without, access to an acute care hospital in their community.
What kind of difference might patients start to notice?
I mean, again, it's, a patient who, for 20 years in our state, we have been figuring out ways to build a patient care delivery system. So we, expanded all kids with the ACA, expanded health insurance, expanded, Medicaid to single adults. And so these are, recipients in our state who right now have the ability to go and receive care in hospitals and are insured. Hospitals like Sinai and Loretto, if you come in, car accident, gunshot wound, you are set up also on Medicaid at that point if you're uninsured. And then you're able to get those wraparound services. those are going to go away in terms of it's now going to be uncompensated care, and so folks are going to have to make decisions of receiving that preventative care or receiving that follow-up care after a crisis.
So it's come up a little bit, Taysa. Loretto Hospital serves a predominantly Black and brown population of Medicaid patients on the city's west side. How will this impact the health disparities that already exist for those communities?
Sure. As Ann mentioned, the death gap continues to grow in our communities. That means individuals don't have access to the care they need when they need it, and ultimately they have to travel outside their community for care, and or they may opt not to seek care. So again, the healthcare disparities in the communities will continue to grow. They'll see also the economic impact. The hospital is the largest economic driver to the local tax base. We contribute $200 million to the local economy every year. So that 500 jobs that could potentially be lost will impact the community. So the local economies will begin to look different as well. So it's not just the healthcare component, but although that is very important, individuals will see longer wait times, or again, may choose not to seek care at all.
Dan, we just kind of talked about it a little bit, but tell us more, if you would, about the impact of this move on everyone, not just the hospitals, not just people who are Medicaid recipients.
I mean, when you do something like this, when you're talking about the kind of cuts that we're talking about, that's something that impacts not just hospitals' bottom lines. We're talking about schools. We're talking about people in the community. We talked about economic development. You know, we're major investors in our community in economic development. We have 3,500 employees. We have a number of programs that have been focused on addressing the social disparities that our communities are facing, related to housing, related to transportation. All of these are things that conceivably go away when this money goes away. It's going to have a drastic impact, and it's going to have an impact that goes beyond just the people in the communities that we serve. We're talking about everybody everywhere. You know, if safety nets are forced to claw back their services, if they're forced to close in the worst case scenarios, we have a system that's not prepared to handle the complexity and the number of patients that they would see. So you're talking about longer wait times at all of your hospitals. You're talking about longer times in the emergency room at every hospital. So it's not just the hospitals on the west side and the south side, it's everywhere.
And many of these hospitals, they're already operating on thin margins or thin budgets. Tell us about some of the challenges that come with providing that kind of care to the most vulnerable communities.
Again, these are, hospitals, again, Loretto and Sinai, Roseland, St. Bernard, Touche down in East St. Louis, they're on a shoestring already. And, folks need to be able to receive that follow-up care and that expanded outpatient care. And when hospitals have to make decisions based on what are, type of patients, what type of insurance they have, on if they can give that follow-up care, that's a problem. And so folks are going to, instead of being able to receive that care in their community, take 2 buses out to the suburbs. Large system hospitals have been reducing duplication of care, across our state. And so, folks can only receive a certain type of service at one of the facilities in a large system hospital instead of all of them. And so we're already seeing these reduction in services, and it's just gonna, exponentially impact our communities, and they're just not going to be able to receive that care. And chronic conditions, diabetes, asthma, heart disease, these are going to go untreated, and again, we're going to see preventable deaths.
Taysa, your hospitals already provide what's called charity care,
Yes.
where you either offer a very deep discount to people who just cannot pay or forgive the debt entirely. Mm-hmm. Will that still be possible?
It'll be challenging to do. We because of the Medicare reimbursement, we get about 32 cents on the dollar. However, we're very mission driven to and have upholding our commitment to the community. So we will continue to provide the same level of care, minus any cuts that we may have to make. But again, I think touching on what Dan said, the cost of care goes up 10 times or 20 times when you use emergency department care for non-emergent services. So we think we're saving, but actually we're going to see an increase with higher utilization in the emergency departments.
Right, ER care is
Yes.
so much more expensive. Dan, are there any particular kinds of services that I know you don't want to say, well, we're going to cut this, that, and the other, because you probably don't want to say that just yet. But what might patients have a harder time finding?
I think we're trying to evaluate what that's all going to mean. I'll go back to what Tessa was saying about charity care. I mean, it's going to force us to make some decisions about how do you do that. Right now, we take care of anybody, no matter whether they have insurance or not, no matter where they come from. It may mean that you have to look at things like, do you establish geographic boundaries for where you apply charity care, what's available to folks. So we've got to look at all those things. Everything's got to be on the table when you're in the situation that we're in.
And just a few seconds left, are there other options that hospitals or systems could look into to make up for this lost funding?
I mean, we have to figure out ways to backfill this cut to Medicaid. So that's changing the provider assessment on the state level. It's, large system hospitals are going to have to start paying their fair share. They're going to have to start putting more money into a hospital stabilization fund than they're getting out. We need to be taxing the rich in our state. Our state made a commitment to provide care to our residents. We need to be able to follow through on that. And that means that our state is going to have to find more revenue.
Okay. Best of luck to all of you in the work that you do. We appreciate it. We appreciate you joining us here. Tessa Anyuishki, Dan Regan, and Ann Igo. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, community members push back against federal immigration agents at a local museum.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
Humboldt Park community leaders are protesting what they call a deliberate attempt by federal agents to bully and intimidate. Officials say immigration agents descended on the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture in Humboldt Park yesterday. Here's 35th Ward Alderman Anthony Quesada at a news conference this morning.
What ICE is doing is that they're intentionally trying to intimidate our community members. So what happened yesterday was an intentional scare tactic and has nothing to do with safety. It was meant to send a message to our undocumented neighbors, to our cultural institutions, and to our entire community that they are being watched and that they are not safe.
Our own Matt Masterson joins us now with more. Matt, what do we know about what actually happened yesterday?
So Homeland Security agents showed up without warning at the museum just after 3 o'clock yesterday in around 15 unmarked vehicles. They arrived, this museum threw its leases on private property, but the agents still refused to leave when they were asked. They stayed on the property till around 5 p.m. At least one agent was granted access to the museum briefly. He asked to use a restroom and was allowed inside, but museum employees said that they overheard these agents talking about upcoming events in the area. They didn't give any specific reason why they were there, but they were discussing upcoming events that apparently may attract undocumented visitors. There's upcoming arts festivals in the area as well. No one was arrested or detained yesterday at the museum, but employees there did say that they were intimidated, that they felt scared by the actions of some of these agents there.
And did the agents give staff any reason as to why they were there and in such large numbers?
The agents on scene did not. They provided very little detail to anyone on the location, but the Department of Homeland Security today did confirm that these were their agents. Homeland Security, of course, oversees ICE as well. But these were their agents and they were members of their department, but that they denied that they were doing any sort of targeted raid or action at the museum. What they said was that Chicago's local financial crimes task force through the Department of Homeland Security staged a briefing in the museum parking lot, that this was related to an enforcement action from an unrelated narcotics investigation. This had nothing to do with immigration or anything about the museum itself. The Department of Homeland Security in its statement claimed that this narrative that it was a targeted enforcement at the museum is completely false, that there was nothing of that sort, and that this was an attempt by local officials to try and demonize ICE agents further.
So we also heard from several other community members and alder folks. How is the community, and we should point out that Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, but how is the community responding to this incident?
There were a lot of concerns about broader enforcement. The reference from these agents agents about upcoming events. The Barrio Arts Festival is going to be held at that museum this weekend. That could draw potentially undocumented visitors if there's going to be some sort of raid or ICE interrogation or investigation at these types of events. It draws a lot of concern regardless of people, if they're documented or undocumented. Nobody wants to see the raid come in while they're at a public arts event like this. There are concerns that the agents were there trying to basically scope out the area, that they were trying to familiarize themselves with the entrances, the exits of this museum, so that if they do need to do something this weekend, that they'll be prepared for it. So there was also a lot of pushback from local officials, from community members, saying that they're not going to stand for any sort of intimidation from Homeland Security, from ICE, from anyone. And they wanted to inform their neighbors that they should stay vigilant, but also they should stand up to this intimidation as well. They should not be afraid. They should continue going out into the community and attending events like this, like the Barrio Arts Festival at the museum this weekend.
Okay, Matt Masterson, thank you.
Thank you, Brandis.
And you can read Matt's full story on our website. That's WTTW.com/news. And we're right back with more right after this. Okay, remember this hit from 2022? Yes, of course, that is Queen Bee's Break My Soul from her Grammy-winning album Renaissance. And one of the artists responsible for remixing that track is none other than one of Chicago's own chosen few DJs. This weekend, house music lovers will dance, shake, and bounce to celebrate 35 years of the Chosen Few Picnic and Festival in Jackson Park. Joining us now with more on the annual house music party are Grammy-nominated DJ Terry Hunter and the festival's sponsor and fellow DJ Laura Branch. Thanks to you both for joining us.
Thank you.
So Terry, you joined the Chosen Few DJs back in 2006.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you at the time?
It was amazing. Chosen Few had this big hype, and just everybody knew about that was a place to go in the park behind the museum in the 90s and in early 2000s. And so at that time I was traveling a lot, you know, around the world DJing, and so I missed quite a few of them. And the first thing is that all of us as friends, you know, in the Chosen Few now, we like brothers. And so when Wayne asked me to join, it was like, it's about time. What took y'all so long? And it's funny, the year that I got inducted, I missed that year because I was traveling overseas, so it really wasn't official until 2007 when I became a part.
So for folks who don't know, what is Chosen Few DJs? How did they come together?
So Chosen Few is a collective of DJs. There's 7 of us now, started by Wayne Williams back in the 70s, I do believe. I get the year mixed up. I tease him all the time. We were saying it yesterday when he started the Few, it was the Few Disco Corp, right?
Yeah,
First.
Chosen Few Disco Corp.
Yeah, and so when he started, it was 1977. I was only 7 years old. So therefore, we talk about that all the time. Yeah. And then the picnic came afterwards in 1990 with the Hatchet family just wanted to get together. Everybody was moving out of town, moving around, and so they used that, the place and the date to have the event, and they kind of got together and it started growing from there.
Laura, tell us a little bit about the picnic. It's gotten to be pretty big,
Yeah.
but it's still got sort of a family feel.
Yeah, just a few people behind the museum, like Terry said, just a few families, and now up to 30, 40,000 people every year. So that should tell you a lot. But it's the popularity of house music. It brings people together. The music is about love and community and friendship and family, and that says it all. It's really, Wayne calls it a love fest, and that's what it is.
It is.
Okay, speaking of love, when did you fall in love with house music? How did that happen?
Well, everything goes back to Wayne, it seems.
All roads.
But no, I was a DJ back right out of high school in the early 80s, and met up with Wayne and Chosen Few. They actually DJed some of our parties in the beginning. I was in a social group, and I've been doing it ever since then, mostly as an artistic expression, but sometimes as a part-time job, getting me through college, and you know, it really has just been a part of my life.
Absolutely.
Same question for you, Terry, because you got into it as a teenager.
Absolutely. For me, I have a cousin that I was named after, and it was a party going on Belmont, right off Lakeshore Drive, which the late great Frankie Knuckles was playing that, and he was like, look, this is an outside event, you're like 10, 11, you're coming along with me. And he drugged me to this event, and that was it. I was like, how is this man controlling this many people through music? And that was my addiction right then and there. I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a DJ. Because it was the same month, it was in August as my birthday. And I left that event trying to figure out how can I be a DJ.
For folks who have not attended the event, what can they expect? What is the energy like, Laura?
Oh, it's a fabulous thing. It's something like you have never experienced before. First of all, it's in Chicago's Jackson Park. There's so much space, but we fill it up. We fill it up. And like I said, it's like a reunion. You're just going to have a good time. The music is banging. There's performances, live performances, performers, you know, the MCs are on popping. You got Terry Hunter. I mean, come on, how much better? You got Lori Branch. We won't talk
Come
about
on.
that.
Yeah, we do.
It's going to be fun.
Okay. So as we mentioned, house music, you know, it's had a big pop culture moment, especially in 2022 when Beyonce released Renaissance. Terry, you earned a 2023 Grammy nomination for remixing Beyonce's Break My Soul. Do you think that brought house music to people who were unfamiliar?
I believe so. And then that was the big conversation about it because, you know, obviously, especially Chicagoans and househeads in general, we hold house music close and dear to our heart. So we defended it at every point that we can. And so I think for people that was into the music would say no, but I think there was a whole bunch of people that really knew the sound but didn't know what it was, that she really made the music popular, the genre popular, and I give her credit for doing that.
There were some critics of Renaissance and some folks who said, you know, that wasn't real house music, that wasn't true house music.
Yeah.
That's not true.
It's not true
first
at
of all,
all.
that's not true.
Yeah.
What is house music, though?
Absolutely. House music is, you know, it's a cliche thing. House is a feeling. You know what I mean? It's about love. It represents, we say love fest, it represents love. You can tell, and that's the one thing that I miss from a lot of DJs now, so DJs up your game, is you can tell how a DJ feels at that moment by playing the record that he plays or she plays. And so I think it's kind of lost that, but it's definitely a 4/4 up-tempo beat. It comes from disco, and it's dance music, you know?
Tell me a little bit about how you mix a beat.
Well,
What you doing?
So without having the instruments there, but normally what you would do,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's just, you know, you will have a record, and it's another cliche thing is that because certain records are the same tempo doesn't mean that they go together, that you can mix in and out. But normally it starts with the BPM. You get a record that to you that sounds good. You listen to the song, you have to know when to come in and when to get out, and not having you mixing hook lines over hook lines and, you know, instruments over instruments. You got to know how to get in and out of it. But it's an up-tempo type of feel, and you use your pitch control to map, to beat match, and you go from there.
And you pay attention to your audience.
No, that's
well. You know, a bad mix is when we say it's
Nobody's
like
dancing.
Nobody's dancing, or it sounds like gym shoes in a dryer. You ever heard gym shoes?
Yes.
That's not a good mix.
That's not a good mix. Are they tap dancing in their sneakers? All right, I think we actually have a little bit that we can play as well for viewers.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna let down my hair, 'cause I lost my mind. B is back and I'm sleeping real good at night. The queens in the front and the doms in the back. Ain't taking no flicks, but the whole click snap.
So you can't hear that and not also move and dance, right? It's not possible. So women DJs, I think we know they're pretty common in this age. Just in Chicago, we've got DJ Cash Era, Suki G's, Tori the Creator. But you're a pioneer, Laura.
Thank you.
One of the first women DJs of house music. What has that been like for you?
It's been incredible. I mean, and it's incredible to be recognized as such. We were kids. We didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know that I was the first of anything. I just wanted to play. And so it's cool because my brothers like Terry Hunter, Craig Loftus, you know, Honey Dijon, who's, you know, famous across the world. She, you know, they recognize that is a serious thing to have a woman who's a pioneer and who also should get recognition. So it's very humbling, and I get to help bring up other women as well. There's so many, as you mentioned, lots of great DJs, producers that are coming up now, but it was few and far between in the early '80s.
Yeah. All right. Before we let you go, any favorite memories from the festival?
Any favorite memories?
All of them?
Everyone is, like, I'm gonna say this, then because we're talking about Beyonce, I just thought it was awesome that when I got the call to remix the record, I had did it a few months prior, right?
Yes.
And so I got the clearance from Beyonce and her team to play the record at the Chosen Few Picnic. And that record is where it really got broke from the Chosen Few Picnic. And next thing you know, it was the Beehive from Spain and France and all of these. It was like, oh my God, what is this remix? What is this?
You heard it.
Yeah, so that was one of a aha moment for me at Chosen Few.
All right. Well, looking forward to this weekend's festival. Congrats on 35 years.
Thank you.
Can I
Laura
add one
Branch,
more thing?
for 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Because I might be killed if I didn't mention that as a sponsor. So I work with Gilead Sciences, and we are the title sponsor of the event. And it's really important that we have messages that are directly for the community around HIV, hepatitis, breast cancer, especially disproportionately affecting our community. And so that's why we want a healthy community, and we're really excited to partner.
All right. Congrats on 35 years. Break a leg this weekend. Laura Branch, Terry Hunter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Of
Appreciate
course.
you.
And that is our show for this Wednesday night. You can stream Chicago Tonight on our WTTW YouTube channel every evening and catch up on any programs you may have missed. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that contributes to public safety policy and guidelines.